everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're in week 2 of our 3-part leadership series, and this week we're joined by some guests who will be giving their perspectives on the importance of being disciplined and technically sound as a leader. So just a few things before we get into introductions. You can type your questions in for our guests at any time using the questions app on your GoToWebinar panel. We love to hear from all of you, and we'll do our best to leave some time after the interviews to get to those questions. Also, this session will be recorded and uploaded to our video library on our website, where you can view all of our past webinar recordings. And I'll send out an email to everyone who registered for the webinar, so you can access it that way as well. So I'm Hannah Curtis. I'm a coordinator with the North Metro SBDC. I'm joined by lead consultant Jon Jaggers. Jon has been working with both of our guests for several years to give guidance and support while consulting their businesses. So we're very happy to have Jon's expertise and leadership throughout the series. So our first guest today is Paul Beier, president of Dale's Meats in Brighton. Paul exemplifies discipline in so many of the ways he approaches his business, and we're excited to hear his advice on how we can all implement discipline into our own leadership approaches. Our second guest is Matthew Irvin, senior engineering consultant with Mapelwell Engineering Co in Westminster. And through Matthew's approach to business, he demonstrates the advantage of implementing technical systems and the importance of being technically sound, which is becoming increasingly important in business today. So we're looking forward to his advice as well. So to kick things off, Paul, could you tell us a little bit about your business?
Sure. We're established in 1968, family business. My father and grandfather started it. We are primarily a wholesale jerky manufacturer, beef, buffalo, elk, things like that. We do have an online presence for about the last couple of years, which definitely helped through the pandemic after it started. But that's what we do currently.
Okay, great. Well, Paul, I picked you just because I know from the last 9 months that we've been working together that you demonstrate some really great discipline in really all aspects of what you do. Specifically, how has the COVID pandemic created the need for additional discipline, particularly in your operation?
Our sales, March 15th, 16th, literally stopped. Our wholesale business went to nothing. The online business increased a little bit, but with that loss of sales, we had to start immediately monitoring inventory to make sure that the product, what we had was enough, or that we didn't have too much. So it was just focusing on that inventory initially to continue to manage the business.
Okay.
Great. And consistent financial tracking has been so important in identifying your sales and profits and cash flow, especially during these times. How do you ensure that your tracking is consistent? You mentioned your inventory. Do you have a process for ensuring all of that?
The tracking, I went from weekly inventories to almost daily inventories. I created a list of things that we need to monitor weekly and or do weekly to ensure that stuff was done. Physical, we were doing physical counts once a month, sometimes once a quarter. That went to a weekly task just to ensure that everything was there. There were spreadsheets submitted by SBDC. My bank had submitted some good spreadsheets that we utilized, and then created additional spreadsheets off of that. So it was a lot of maybe overkill, but checks and balances between spreadsheets and just knowing exactly where we were daily.
Great.
I think the thing is, Paul, is that I know for a fact, because I often ask you questions about your financials. I mean, you keep very tight books from a standpoint of overall sales, your cash flow in particular, which is critical during these times, and your profitability, which obviously with lower sales gets strained. So, you know, I think you do a great job in that area, and that's really one of the reasons I thought that you'd be great for this session. The other thing, with the lower sales starting in March, you've had to change your marketing strategy. And can you talk about specifically how you had to pivot your marketing techniques during this period?
We, as far as online went, we increased our content marketing, additional blog posts that were specific to the pandemic and what was going on at that particular time. Email blasts, we sent some additional email blasts out. I did back off on my Google ads through that time, just because of the cost, and it didn't seem to, our organic listings real strong on the internet, so I didn't feel it would hurt us, and it didn't. But the email blasts, we would see, you know, triple-digit spikes when we'd send an email blast out, which was good. And I think that content marketing of 2 to 3 times a month has been integral in keeping that organic listing, you know, up high, so we don't have to pay for those Google ads, because we were actively looking at expenses we could cut through that time with the decreased sales.
Yeah, and I look at your website on a regular basis. Your content marketing is I think very, very good. It's, you know, you talk a lot about the impact of COVID during the time frame. You know, how you and your group were keeping excellent control, and really how it impacted. So that's really good.
Great. You were also able to apply for and receive some of the grants and funding. And applying for those obviously requires a lot of discipline in your documentation and recording all of that. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, initially John was very active in keeping me informed as to what was coming out, when and where. As soon as I was able to start putting applications in, whether it was the PPP or the EIDL, we started that process to get that rolling, and then just tracked it through there. But it was, I felt with the money that was available that they were offering, that it was important for us to get on top of it as fast as we could, and get through the process in hopes of retaining employees and, you know, sustaining the business, you know, having that extra cash flow for the utilities and, you know, things of that sort.
And one of the keys that I had a lot of my 25 clients that applied for a stimulus, but one of the things that came out from the standpoint of Paul is he keeps such very tight financial records that he was able to pull that up and supply that both for PPP and the EIDL loans. So, one of the benefits of the EIDL was the fact that you were able to install some packaging equipment, which we had done an ROI on it. And if you could talk about the ROI a little bit, and then really how has that equipment affected your team and yourself from a discipline standpoint?
Sure. I'd run time tests in my facility prior to actively pursuing the machine, so I know exactly how long it took my crew to run 100 pounds of jerky from start to finish through the packaging process. I went out and locally, there's some of the machines that are in place at other meat packing houses. I went and viewed it, watched them run, talked to the vendor to see how fast we could make it run, if the packaging is going to, fit what we needed. And then I was still hesitant. I knew the machine made sense. It was a big investment for us, but after talking with Jon and he saw the numbers that I had run, he basically told me it was a no-brainer, and we went ahead and pulled the trigger on it. It's packaging time has been cut by about 70%, I would say. So it's definitely reduced the labor. It did create another issue for us with inventory control, because now we've got to increase our inventory levels up higher than what they normally were to ensure that we've got the right item at the right time, ready to ship out. But it's definitely made a huge impact. Even though we're running, a little shy on inventory right now, our orders are going out much quicker this year than we did last year, with about the same amount of help, and the sales are up. So a definite increase in productivity on that side.
Great.
Yeah, he got connected here.
Always encouraging to hear when sales are going up.
Yeah.
So another question, do you have any daily practices that help you stay disciplined, especially during these challenging times?
I try to follow the same routine daily throughout the week. A list always helps. I try to keep a list that, it grows and it shrinks, and then you've got to add to it again. But I think just following a routine is huge. Having that list of daily, weekly, monthly things that need to be done, and staying on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Very good.
Well, thank you. I know we'll have some more questions for you from viewers at the end here. But for now, Matt, I want to turn it over to you, and hoping you can tell us a little bit about your business as well.
Sure. So, business Mapelwell Energy. We're an engineering-focused business in energy services, and we are newly formed. So we were formed in 2019, and what we're doing is trying to be what's called a DER enabler, and that stands for Distributed Energy Resources. And what that means is just the old way of delivering electricity to your business is being challenged, and things like solar and wind have come a long ways in the past 30 years. Costs has come down such that it doesn't really make sense to generate electricity, ship it over hundreds of miles to your business, to your facility. So we are a group of utility engineers, and we wanted to take those same solutions that we use at the utility scale and deliver it at the facility level. So what we're doing is leading something called energy as a service, and we're transforming energy costs for your business into energy savings. And what that gives you, the benefits it gives you, it adds a whole level of operational resiliency to your business. It opens up a new revenue stream, and it tells a story of being socially responsible in adding this level of sustainability to your business. We do this with a very technology agnostic point of view. So we're not committed to any vendor or financial partner. We truly are trying to serve your needs in a set of solutions that meets your business.
So Matt, obviously engineering and software, or the knowledge base, are the cornerstone of your organization. Can you started to touch on it, and I think we're close, but describe how that knowledge base drives your business, and how do you share that with potential customers?
Sure. So we are our level of expertise is on systems, and specifically a systems integrator. And typically, like a manufacturing facility will have some type of EHS policy, environmental health and safety policy, and energy follows or falls underneath environmental. The issue is energy is a very specialized skill set, and energy typically gets pushed aside, right? There's other priorities around the health and safety of employees and just operations. So we really trying to come into an organization and partner with them as their energy manager and explore solutions that we're comfortable with and provide this full integrated offering and really take something from start to finish, including the project finance.
Great, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more too about the software applications you use in implementing your energy usage savings?
Sure. So we use a few key things in our tool set. One of them is something called a building automation platform called Niagara. 90% of the buildings and facilities in the United States are not automated. And it's a shame because it's a tremendous opportunity to provide energy savings, immediate energy savings at a very low capital cost. So we've become an authorized systems integrator through this platform called Niagara. And with that, we can do things to control and automate your facility, such as scheduling loads so that you don't see a spike in your electricity bill, and also doing energy conservation measures like turning off lights and turning off pieces of equipment when they're not needed. So more on the design side, and something that is important to developers is we also use something called building energy modeling. And so we can take an idea or an energy conservation measure and forecast that over the life cycle of the asset. And what that does, the benefit it provides to the developer or the building owner, is it opens up creative ways they can finance a project, and opens up a whole new world of cheaper capital to them, so they can accomplish a set of solutions that can benefit their business.
That's great. So Matt, one of the main drivers of your business is reducing you touched on this a little bit, but reducing the carbon footprint, both in commercial and manufacturing companies. I mean, that is certainly something that larger companies are well aware of, in addition to the opportunity for cost savings. So keeping that in mind, how can your technology have a positive impact on our environment?
Yeah, so we view technology as a tool. To do these projects requires a lot of parties to be involved. And so what we tell folks is ESG, environmental, social, and governance investing matters right now. And the reason it matters is because millennials right now are the biggest consumers, the biggest buying force in the United States. And 75%, there's been research on it, says 75% of millennials will buy a certain brand, product, or service just because that company has demonstrated this ESG investment. So we try to formulate how a business can not only implement a technology to save them money, but also tell the story of how they're being socially responsible, creating sustainability with their products, and be able to market that and be able to sell that and gain an advantage to this large consumer base.
Thank you, that's really helpful. We talked to you a little bit about one of the available SBA grants. Small Business Innovation and Research, I believe is what SBIR stands for. It focuses on stimulating technological innovation. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the program's details and how your application of technology qualifies you for this grant?
Sure. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the government is actually the largest seed funding source in the world. So they set aside for small businesses money to invest in R&D, research and development projects. So what Mapelwell is working on right now is finding a way to operate a facility in a predictive manner. So predict the behavior of a facility on a given day or time and find ways of how we can manage their systems so that they reduce their energy consumption, reduce their energy costs, and tell the story of being sustainable. And the SBIR breaks that out in several phases. The first phase is all about proving out the concept, and the second phase is proving out the commercialization. How are you going to take this to market? How are you going to commercialize it? And what else do you need to put in place to enable this technology?
Which creates a lot of, hopeful, a lot of great opportunities for you in 2021. I know you're pretty excited about that, so
Yeah.
I think that's great. Your company's also certified by CPACE, and so that's really a state policy enabled financial mechanism, which this is a real plus from your standpoint and potential customer standpoint. Can you explain the advantages of that program?
Sure. So CPACE, the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy program, is just one of the vehicles that we use to help clients implement finance projects. And there are some pretty short-term or well-performing projects can be implemented. However, some of the large capital-intensive projects have a longer payback. So you have this gap where it makes sense financially 5-10 years down the road, but most businesses can't afford to upfront the cash for that. So the strategy is to finance a project in future energy savings, and that's essentially what CPACE does. It is a program that is throughout the country, but Colorado actually has one of the best CPACE programs in the United States. And what it does is it will take a clean energy project and assess it against your property so that the debt is financed through your property tax payments. And this program is not just for retrofits, it also applies to new construction. So as long as you can tell the story of how a piece of equipment or a system or some type of feature you want to add to your facility, to your business, or your building is going to save energy, you can finance that with the CPACE program, and it is extremely competitive interest rates. You're talking 3 to 4%.
Exciting. So what advice would you give to a company who's interested in implementing energy saving technology or really any other new technology system that they don't currently have in place, but they don't know where to start or maybe what the first step is?
So yeah, the first step is to get what's called an energy audit. And there's different levels of energy audits. What a lot of people don't know is actually Excel in this region will offer energy audits for free, just the basic energy audits. Mapelwell also offers more detailed energy audits. And what we do is we come in and we gather your data, we gather your energy bills, and we see how much room there is for improvement. What are some of the low capital cost investments that can be done to make a dent in your energy bill? And it's surprising, just about making some very basic fixes can make a huge impact. So as a deliverable of the energy audit, we list recommendations that you can take to a contractor and get those addressed and implemented immediately to start seeing some benefits. Another cool benefit too from the utilities is most utilities will actually reimburse you. So in terms of our detailed energy audits, it's pretty much a zero to minimal cost to you at the end of the day.
That's great. Great. Well, thank you. Those were some of our initial interview questions to get some background and get your perspectives on all of this. So thank you both, Paul and Matthew, for those. We do have some questions coming in that we'll get to, but John, didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add about these topics before we get into any questions.
No, I mean, just talking about the leadership principles that, we're talking about today. I think, again, we're in very challenging times. So the need for leadership from a standpoint of being disciplined, setting the example as being disciplined, keeping track of your financials in particular, I think is extremely important. And then from the standpoint of being technically sound, I mean, we're not going to be as savvy as Matt is in most cases, but there are so many great pieces of software out there from a standpoint of what we need to take advantage of, both financially, financial tracking like QuickBooks. There's ERP systems that are very simple, particularly if you're a manufacturer, that you can actually track all your processes using ERP. So that's the main points I think that we're trying to get across here today.
Great, thank you. So we do have some questions we can get into. This first one is for Paul. Mary asks how you keep from getting derailed from your daily and weekly task list that you mentioned. She says in her experience, it's very easy to get sidetracked by real-time developments as they come up.
I get sidetracked constantly, so I'm usually down here on Saturday and Sunday trying to catch up. I do, try to get some help from some of the other employees when things like that, happen, delegating some of the jobs that can be done by somebody else, but it's hard not to get derailed with, there's daily fires we all have to put out that need to be addressed immediately. So it's just following through with what you have to do, and unfortunately, it's evenings and weekends for me to play catch up.
You made in our initial discussion, you made a point about the packaging equipment and how you really have learned to delegate to your team from a standpoint of their learning and optimization of that equipment. Can you talk about that just for 1 second?
Sure. It was I allowed, when we got that new piece of equipment, I tried as best as I could to step back and allow the people that were in there running it to take ownership of it, make decisions on how things would be done, and let them make the changes without me trying to step in there too much, which I did a lot in the beginning, and I've tried to step back from that a little bit. So I think, trusting your employees, delegating some of that stuff is important. It's hard to do. It's definitely hard for me to let go of some of those things that that need to be done, but at times you have to.
And it allows you to do those other things that are essential as far as, and looking ahead from a vision standpoint of where you're going and keeping track of all the financial pieces. So
yeah, and we've got I think Jon sent me a SWOT what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a format of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, things like that we have gone through. We haven't had the opportunity yet to sit down and go through it with Jon, but I think that's going to be something that is going to be beneficial to us and could be beneficial to a lot of people to, even just taking the time to sit down and read that list and say, okay, here's where we're good, here's where we need improvement, where are we going to go, where do we want to be, or where are we going to go tomorrow or next week, next year.
And that's something that we need to try to do before the end of the year, because that really lays out your strategic plan for next year.
Yes, and I think everybody I've handed it out to here has completed their part, so I am the anchor on the ship this time.
Okay, well, let me know. I'll bug you.
Yes, I do.
Great. Thank you for that. Another question from Lisa. Any advice, I guess, from any of you on handling email and text? Any ways to maybe streamline that process from customers?
I'm sorry, I missed part of the question. Handling what?
Oh, emails and texts that are coming in from customers or vendors. Any way to streamline that process of getting back to them?
Well, I'll start with an answer, because this is a common problem we all face. And what I tell my clients is, okay, you could sit there all day and answer emails if you wanted to, but then you're not going to get many other things done. So what I always suggest is set specific times during the day when you're going to read and respond to emails. First thing in the morning, sometime before lunch, mid-afternoon, and before you go home. Just dedicated time of half an hour on each one of those time frames, and deal with it at that point. Now, granted, you got to keep our customers happy and be responsive, but there's nothing that I don't think that's all that critical, that if you look at your emails 4 times a day, you certainly are going to be able to answer whatever their concerns or questions are. So structure 4 times a day. Hannah, what do you think? How do you handle it?
Well, that's a lot of what I do. We want to make sure all of the clients who are reaching out to our center are getting connected as quickly as possible. So I may be in a bit of a different position and situation than others. So I'm looking at my email all day, every day. So I don't know that I have the best advice, but I guess just a really simple one that I do use is just that little flag reminder. If I can't get to it right then, or if something needs to fall into place before I can get back to them, those little flags, make sure that it doesn't fall through the cracks. And that is one of the first things I check then the next day if I do have any flagged messages from the previous day or anything like that. So really simple, practical way to use that, I guess. But Paul or Matt, any other advice on that one?
I guess for me, one of the issues I face is just getting solicited all the time and spammed. So I've tried to set up some systems where I can filter some of that, but there's always something that comes through and distracts me. So much like Jon, I try to set dedicated times where I can create a space to respond to emails and to engage with clients and vendors and have those kind of conversations. But it is incredibly disruptive when you get a text a random phone call from someone when you're in the middle of deep work, you're concentrating, you're writing on a proposal or something along those lines. So I try to do everything I can to protect that space, turn off all my notifications, and turn on focus mode on my computer for those times that I've allotted to do that work.
Great. Well, yes, good questions. Thank you for typing those in. Feel free to keep those coming. There's a couple more in here. And here is, from Lisa again. Can you talk a little bit more about the focus mode that you mentioned, Matt?
So in Windows, and I think Apple probably does a better job of this, but in Windows, in the settings, you can set focus mode, and it'll turn off all notifications, all the annoying things that pop up in your computer when you're in the middle of writing or doing whatever your task is. I'll try to find an article that I can post in the chat, and you can play with it a little bit.
Thank you. This one also came in a little more specific to you, Matt. Question is, do you see small businesses taking advantage of energy as a service, or is it mostly for larger businesses? They say it seems overwhelming to think about implementing that when there's so many other details to take care of as a small business owner.
Yes, and we've been, we're new at this too, so we're trying to find what is something that a small business feels comfortable with. And if we come into a meeting and say, hey, we'll completely eliminate your bill with, a $10 million solar project on site, that's, even though it sounds good in practice, once you start to think about it, there's a lot of fear involved with that. So to answer your question, energy as a service can work for small businesses, but where I think the opportunity is around automation. Energy conservation doesn't get advertised enough, and really with just making changes in implementations and software, you can save up to 30% in your energy costs. So, and automation does not cost a lot compared to a project like solar. So really, where I see the opportunity where small businesses is energy management as a service is a real opportunity.
Great. Yeah, that's exciting to think about. Thank you. So this next one for you, Paul, you mentioned the daily task list that helps you stay disciplined and make sure you're keeping on top of everything. Do you have any sort of annual disciplines that you try to get to either, the first of the year or at any time throughout the year that are bigger pictures rather than just the daily task list?
I think the SWOT format that Jon sent out is going to be a big part of our what we do annually. With me being so involved with my inventory and making sure that it's right, obviously at the end of the year, everybody's thinking about their P&Ls and getting it to the CPA and things like that, which is always it's important. I feel like staying on top of that type of stuff throughout the year makes that January, February time a little bit easier. A couple times a year, we'll sit down and we'll look at what markets we haven't hit. We realized that when COVID did hit, we needed to diversify. We were about 50% of our wholesale orders were within a couple of customers, and when they shut down, obviously, we came to almost a screeching halt. So we did look at that point in time about diversifying. It's on our list of things to talk, over with Jon when we do that. So, P&L, sales growth for the next year, and opportunities, and diversifying. I think diversification is important for a lot of businesses, you know, finding those niches or those markets that you're not in yet that potentially you could be.
So just to expand on that a little bit, Hannah, the SWOT analysis that Paul's talking about, this is an exercise I go through this time of year with most of my clients, and really what we're looking at is trying to define the strategic plan for the following year, and not making it a complex exercise, but one that's relatively simple. You go through the SWOT analysis, and it's a clear demonstration of what your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities are. And then based on that, we put together some what I call tactical initiatives, which are 8, 9, or 10 different things that you're going to focus on during the year. And then what I suggest is on a quarterly basis, each of the management team sits down and evaluates where they're at based on those tactical initiatives. So it sounds complex, but it isn't. And I'm certainly available to go through that exercise with any one of our clients. And it takes about an hour session on the SWOT and about an hour on developing the strategies. So it's not complex, but it's taking the time, as Paul said, to figure out what direction you're going to go during the next year.
Great, thank you, John. That sounds really helpful. I did just put a link to our website where you can schedule an appointment for anyone who does want to go through that exercise for their own business. And I'm wondering, that leads into one of these next questions. The question is there some sort of assessment I can take to determine what aspect of leadership could be most beneficial to my business? You know, in thinking, do I need to focus on being disciplined? Do I need to put more focus towards being technically sound, or any of the other qualities of leadership we focused on? They're all important, but the question is there, how can someone determine what quality might be most suited for their business to start with? And I'm wondering if that SWOT analysis would help someone determine that as well.
Yeah, I think it would. It generally gets into operational emphasis, financial emphasis, marketing emphasis, all those different things. But it does have some leadership development aspects from a standpoint of training also. I guess my suggestion might be, again, it's always good to use our free consulting service. I don't think that SBDC has any I could be wrong, you tell me, any leadership analysis tools, but certainly talking to several sessions with any one of our consultants would probably bring out, you know, what to focus on. So I don't know, what do you think, Anna?
Yeah, I agree. I always think making one of those appointments is the best place to start. And throughout those sessions, an assessment or tool may be recommended that could be helpful in determining your leadership style and maybe what aspects you do need to focus on or could be most beneficial to focus on first. But I agree, starting with that initial consultation or a follow-up consultation if you have met before, but it's been a while, always a helpful resource. And
yeah,
free.
I mean, interrupt you, but the other thing is all of our leadership sessions are recorded and can be found on YouTube, or I guess we have a library on SBDC also. So this is a great lead-in. Next week at this time, we're going to have actually 2 more clients. One from a standpoint of demonstrating resilience, which is so key right now during the pandemic. And the other client is going to be talking about being trustworthy and open with your employees. And again, so critical to have good communication and back and forth understanding during this time frame. So next week, same time, and then you can go back and review actually last week's on YouTube.
Yes, yes. Thank you for mentioning that. So those are all of our questions for now. Paul, John, or Matt, is there anything else any of you would like to, any advice or words of wisdom you'd like to leave with our viewers today?
I utilize SBDC. John's been very helpful. We started, it's been a year now, I think. But there's been a lot of little things and some big things that he's been able to help me with. And I think it's a free service. There's a wealth of knowledge in that office, and it's been beneficial to me.
Thank you. We always love hearing that.
Yeah, and I will echo that as well. You know, one of the questions John asked me earlier was about SBIR, and it was through John. Actually, he got an introduction with the Boulder SBDC. Turns out there's a wealth of expertise and experts who know that program very well. So ask questions, see if you can find resources. Chances are SBDC has them.
Yes, thank you. That brings up a good point. Some of our clients don't know that our North Metro SBDC is part of the larger SBDC network. So there are offices all over the state that all have experts and consultants that want to help. So we love being a part of a network to help give people the exact support that they do need. So thank you for bringing that up, Matt.
And the only last thing I want to say is thanks to Paul and Matt for taking their time and sharing their expertise. I think it lends a lot of credibility to these sessions when we have folks like these two guys that demonstrate those skills so well. So that's all I got.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Paul and Matt, for making the time today. And I agree with John. It's not easy to demonstrate these skills, but it is really encouraging and inspiring to see businesses that have put in the hard work and the time to realize these qualities in their leadership and in their businesses. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Like John mentioned, we'll be back same time, same place next week to wrap up our leadership series. So that is all for today, but we wish you all a great rest of your day.